Emma had just brewed a fresh cup of coffee, the steam curling lazily upward as she nestled into her favorite corner of the couch. A soft rain pattered against the windows, casting rippling shadows across the living room walls. The book in her hands, a worn paperback she'd read 3 times, was just beginning to tug her back into its familiar world when her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at the screen, expecting a spam call or maybe her mom asking about Sunday dinner. But instead, it was a number she didn't recognize. Local but unfamiliar. Something about it made her hesitate before answering.
Hello?
There was a pause. A faint rustling, as if someone was adjusting a headset.
Is this Emma Harrison?
Yes. Who's calling?
This is Officer Stevens with the San Mateo Police Department. Are you in a place where you can talk?
Emma sat upright. Her fingers instinctively tightened around the phone.
A place where I can talk?
I'm sorry to inform you your partner, Jacob Harper, has been in a serious accident. He was driving southbound on Highway 92 earlier this afternoon. There was a collision. He's been transported to Stanford Medical in critical condition.
The words didn't land all at once. They hung in the air like puzzle pieces she couldn't yet fit together.
What? I don't understand. What happened? Is he okay?
I can't speak to his medical status beyond what I've told you, but I strongly recommend you get to the hospital as soon as you can. He asked for you.
He what? Wait, he was conscious? He said my name?
Just go, Miss Harrison.
She didn't even realize she'd dropped the book or spilled the coffee until she stood. Her hands were shaking. Her coat was still damp from the morning walk, but she threw it on anyway. The drive to the hospital was a blur of windshield wipers, red lights, and her own shallow breathing. But the most haunting thing, the thing she would remember for the rest of her life, was the sound her phone made just after the call ended. A ding. Text notification. From Jacob. She grabbed the phone with trembling fingers, heart pounding, afraid to hope. But it wasn't new. It was a message he'd sent that morning. One she hadn't seen.
Hey, don't forget to pick up oat milk. Love you.
A normal message. Innocent. Domestic. Nothing dramatic. But now, it felt like a whisper from the past. A ghost of the man who, just hours ago, had kissed her goodbye at the door without knowing it might be the last time. And she hadn't said I love you back. The hospital parking lot was almost empty, yet Emma struggled to find a spot. Her fingers gripped the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping her from unraveling. Her brain was moving faster than her body. She kept checking the address on her phone, as if the hospital might change locations if she looked away. Inside, the fluorescent lights immediately slapped away the comfort of the outside rain. The sterile, sanitized air stung her nose and throat. Smelled like bleach and something worse. Fear, maybe. The front desk was manned by a woman with a pleasant but distant expression, as if she'd perfected the art of emotional detachment.
I'm looking for Jacob Harper.
Emma blurted out louder than she meant to.
He was just brought in. There was a car accident.
The receptionist looked down at her computer and began typing, each keystroke echoing like a metronome in Emma's ears. After a long pause, the woman gave a tight nod and pointed.
Trauma center. 3rd floor. Take that elevator and turn left.
Emma barely mumbled a thank you before walking toward the elevator. The silver doors opened slowly, as if they too were reluctant to take her where she needed to go. She stepped inside alone, her reflection distorted in the brushed metal walls. She could barely look at herself. As the elevator rose, so did the pressure in her chest. When the doors opened, a nurse was already waiting. He must have been paged.
You're Emma?
Yes. She nodded. Her voice had stopped working. She followed him down a hallway that felt longer than any she'd ever walked. He paused outside a door and turned to her with a look that made her stomach sink.
He's stable for now, but it's serious. We're monitoring him closely.
What happened?
She asked, her voice a ragged whisper.
He was hit at an intersection, T-boned by a delivery van that ran a red. His car flipped. EMTs got to him fast. He was barely conscious, but he kept saying your name. You were the only contact and his phone flagged, in case of emergency.
Her knees buckled slightly. The nurse steadied her, then opened the door. Inside, Jacob looked wrong. Not like Jacob. His body was swallowed by wires, 4 tubes, and beeping monitors. His skin was pale and waxy under the harsh fluorescent lighting. A bruise spread across his temple like a violent shadow, and his head was partially wrapped in gauze. Machines breathed for him, their steady rhythm both calming and cruel. Emma froze. Her eyes locked onto his hand, the same hand that used to cradle her face, that used to reach for hers in the middle of the night. Now it just lay there, limp and unaware. She sat down beside him, suddenly unsure what to say. There were no scripts for moments like this, so she said the first thing that came out.
Hey, babe. I'm here. I got here fast, okay?
Her voice cracked.
You're gonna be okay. You've gotta be. You still owe me dinner from Thursday, remember? That stupid bet about the dog in the commercial.
The monitors didn't respond. Neither did he. But she reached for his hand and held it anyway. Her thumb ran slow, careful circles across his knuckles.
I swear, Jacob.
She whispered, leaning in, her forehead brushing his.
If you leave me without saying goodbye, I'll never forgive you.
Outside the room, life continued. Gurneys rolled by, doctors barked instructions, the intercom chimed cold announcements. But in that small space, time had stopped. It was just her, Jacob, and the suffocating silence of the unknown. Time in the ICU moved differently. There were no clocks, no windows, just the endless beeping of machines and the soft shuffle of nurses in rubber-soled shoes. Every minute felt like an hour, and every hour like a day. Emma sat curled in a vinyl chair beside Jacob's bed. Her eyes fixed on the heart monitor like she could will it to keep beating just by watching closely enough. She hadn't cried yet. Not fully. Her body refused. Instead, her emotions sat like static behind her ribs, flickering and buzzing, but never releasing. Nurses came in shifts. Some were quiet and kind, brushing Emma's shoulder as they passed. Others were all business. Checking vitals, adjusting 4 lines, speaking in a code of medical jargon that made Emma feel like a foreigner in her own life. At some point, a kind young nurse offered her a blanket and a cup of coffee.
Try to rest, even just for a little,
she said softly. Emma nodded but didn't move. She couldn't. What if he moved? What if he woke up and she wasn't there? She scrolled through photos on her phone to keep herself grounded. Jacob laughing at the beach. Jacob holding their dog Pancake like a baby. Jacob brushing his teeth while dancing terribly to 80s music. And then there was a video, just 12 seconds, of him whispering,
I love you,
before smacking a kiss on her cheek. He'd filmed it as a joke after a fight, knowing she couldn't stay mad when he turned on the charm. That was Jacob. Infuriating, sweet, unshakably himself. Her thumb hovered over the play button, but she couldn't bring herself to hear his voice. Not yet. The hours bled into each other until night returned, though you couldn't tell inside the hospital. Only the thinning stream of visitors and dimmer hallway lights marked the passage of time. Around 2:13 a.m., when even the machines seemed quieter, Emma's phone buzzed. She jumped. One new message. From Jacob. Her chest clenched. She blinked twice, thinking she imagined it. Her hands fumbled as she unlocked the phone, pulse roaring in her ears. The message was simple.
I love you. I'm sorry for everything.
She froze, staring, reading it over and over. Her breath stuttered. Didn't make sense. The timestamp said 2:11 a.m. Jacob had been unconscious all day. His phone had been off when the police called her. She'd seen it, shattered in a bag of his belongings the nurse had given her hours ago. So how? She looked again. No autocorrect errors. No typos. Just 5 words that felt like a gut punch. Love you. I'm sorry for everything. A delayed message. An unsent draft from earlier that somehow went through. Or had he, at some lucid moment in the ambulance, whispered her name and asked someone to send it for him? She didn't know. And the silence in the room offered no answers. Her thoughts spiraled. Was this guilt? Was he hiding something? What was he sorry for? They hadn't fought recently, but every relationship has its ghosts. She tried to push those questions away, but they clung like smoke, refusing to leave the air. She pressed the phone to her chest.
Jacob, if you can hear me.
She whispered, voice shaking.
I need you to wake up. You don't get to leave me with that message and no explanation. You don't get to say sorry and then disappear.
The machines kept beeping. Jacob didn't stir. But the room felt different now. Charged. Like something had passed between them across an invisible thread. Like his words had reached her from somewhere in the in-between. And in that quiet moment, a single tear fell from Emma's eye. The first real one. Not because she was breaking, but because she finally let herself believe he might not come back. The doctor didn't say it right away. He waited until the shift change, after Emma had been awake for nearly 40 hours. After she had stopped reacting to the sound of footsteps in the hallway. After hope had started to turn brittle. Dr. Malik stood just inside the doorway of Jacob's room, arms crossed, face carved with that specific expression medical professionals wore when they had to deliver a quiet kind of devastation.
Ms. Harrison,
he said gently.
We should talk.
She didn't answer. Just looked at Jacob, still unmoving, still suspended somewhere between here and gone. Dr. Malik approached slowly, respecting the sacred silence of the room. He lowered his voice to a compassionate whisper.
There's been no neurological response for 72 hours. No brainstem reflexes. No movement. No pain response. We've done another scan. The swelling is worsening.
Emma clenched her jaw.
So what? You're saying there's nothing left?
He hesitated.
I'm saying we've likely crossed the line into brain death. We can keep his body alive with machines. But Jacob isn't here anymore.
The words echoed like a bomb in her skull. Her instinct was to scream, to argue, to demand more time. But she said nothing. Just nodded once, barely.
I know it's hard. And I'm not asking for a decision right now. But the next step, ethically and medically, is to consider withdrawing life support. We can give you time. Hours. A day. Whatever you need.
Whatever she needed. As if that was possible. Emma sat alone after the doctor left. The quiet louder now. She looked at Jacob, really looked. At the faint stubble on his chin, the ridge of his brow, the scars on his knuckles from when he once punched a cabinet door after a stupid argument.
I'm not ready.
She whispered to the body that looked like Jacob but didn't feel like him anymore.
How the hell am I supposed to know if this is what you'd want?
She thought about the text. Love you. I'm sorry for everything. Was it a goodbye? Or just guilt? The questions clawed at her. What was he sorry for? Was it something big? Something she didn't know about? She unlocked his phone again, against her better judgment. The screen was cracked. Blood from his hand had dried in its corners. Felt wrong to hold it. She opened the Messages app. Nothing unusual. Just texts with friends, co-workers, her. But in the drafts folder, buried deep, she found a saved note. Dated weeks ago. It wasn't a suicide note. It wasn't a confession. It was an unsent letter.
If something ever happens to me, don't let me stay hooked up to machines. I couldn't bear to be a ghost in your life. Let me go, Em. Please. You were always the best part of my story. Don't let me be the worst part of yours.
Her breath caught. The phone trembled in her hands. She broke then. Fully. Ugly, unrelenting sobs that echoed through the quiet ICU. She didn't care who heard. Nurses past the door gave her space. Some stood still, heads bowed, knowing what that kind of grief looked like. Later that night she signed the papers. Not because she wanted to, but because Jacob had asked her to. In the hallway, she sat on a bench staring at the wall. A chaplain approached quietly, offered her a cup of tea, and sat beside her in silence. Emma didn't speak. She couldn't. Not yet. Inside the room, the machines continued to hum. But soon they would go quiet. And all that would be left was the sound of her heartbeat, echoing in a space where Jacob's used to be. The room was quieter than it had ever been. It was just past 9 a.m. The sunlight that filtered through the ICU window was soft, indifferent. It painted long rectangles of light on the white hospital floor, as if the day didn't know it was supposed to be different. Emma sat beside Jacob's bed for the last time. The machines were still on. Now, the rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor echoed in her chest, syncing with her own heart, a cruel harmony. She had brushed his hair, straightened his hospital gown, placed a photo of the two of them, from a camping trip in Big Sur, on the table beside him. He was grinning in the photo, arms wrapped around her, smoke from a campfire curling behind them. She had almost deleted it once. Now it felt sacred. The nurse had offered to dim the lights. Emma said no. Jacob hated hospitals. Always had.
Too much artificial light.
He used to say.
You never know if it's day or night.
So now the real sunlight stayed. Felt right. Dr. Malik came in one last time.
You can stay as long as you want.
He said softly.
We'll disconnect the machines whenever you're ready.
Emma nodded but didn't speak. She stood up, moved closer to the bed. Her fingers traced the shape of Jacob's hand, the lifeless warmth of it. She kissed his forehead, then leaned in and rested her head gently on his chest. Just for a moment.
I need to say a few things.
She whispered more to herself than to him. Her voice was steady, low, intimate.
You told me not to let you stay a ghost. But that's not how this works, Jacob. You'll haunt me. Every day. Not in the scary way, in the way a shadow always clings to light.
She paused, breathing him in one last time.
You always thought you weren't enough. But you were everything to me. You were annoying and stubborn and messy, and somehow, you were still the one person who made me feel safe.
A tear slipped down her cheek and landed on his collarbone.
I forgive you. Whatever you were sorry for, I forgive you.
He pulled back, took his hand in hers, kissed it.
I hope wherever you are, it's warm. And quiet. And full of music.
She gave the nurse a small nod. One by one the machines were shut down. First the feeding tube. Then the ventilator. The breathing stopped. The sound was deafening. The heart monitor was last. Beep. Slower. Slower. And one long flat line. Silence. Emma didn't scream. She didn't fall apart. She just sat there. Ill. The chaplain entered quietly and said a prayer. A nurse gently unplugged the monitors. Someone placed a small white sheet over his body, but left the face uncovered for her. When it was finally time to go, she stood, placed her fingers on his lips and whispered,
Good night, love.
Then she walked out. 1 week later. It was raining again. Same as the day it happened. Emma stood on the balcony of their apartment, holding Jacob's phone in her hands. She hadn't turned it on since the hospital. Now she did. It lit up. One voicemail. Time-stamped the same morning of the crash. Early. 8:17 a.m. She put it on speaker. Her heart pounded. Jacob's voice filled the quiet.
Hey, babe. You were still asleep. I didn't want to wake you. I was just thinking about the dumb bet we made. I'm totally going to win, by the way. I love you. That's it. Just love you. More than anything.
Then silence. Emma smiled through her tears. That was the last message. Not the mysterious text. Not the fear. Not the hospital. Just love. Simple. Undeniable. And that, she decided, was the message she would carry forward. Always.